I want to talk to you today about something that probably many of us can relate to. And that's the simple fact that when you think about leadership, you think about someone or something that's strong and one that's bold. But you know what? Leaders are people too. And when I say leaders are people too, it simply means that we're not invincible. We're not unbreakable. We're not unemotional or people that are without emotions. And I was thinking about the fact that I'm scared too. As a human being, first, you have to face your fears. And if you're facing your fears, basically your fears have confronted you, or you found your place in a space where there's something that's threatening you and it may scare you. And that in itself is okay. It's about how you respond. And that's what I want to talk about because literally, I'm not Hercules and I'm not Superman. Those are fictitious characters. But at the end of the day, I'm scared too. I'm scared that the political landscape is turned upside down and things could happen in this country and in this world that may have never, ever happened before. And when you don't have any control, that's something that, you may have a healthy fear that things can happen that are out of your control or you can't do anything about. You just have to suffer the brunt of that scenario. It doesn't matter where it is on the scale, subject matter doesn't matter. It's just the fact that when people feel that their backs are up against the wall and they can't control anything, they're liable to do anything. And unfortunately, whoever's in their midst, they will be impacted by that. And it also makes me think about, for instance, I'm scared for my children and my grandchildren. I've lived obviously a lot longer than they have. Doesn't mean that I deserve less life or less quality of life, but I'm scared for them that they don't even have or may not have the durability, the ability to understand how to weave in and out of certain scenarios, which could be life threatening or just super duper challenging. Let's look at it for what it is. Times are hard and people are desperate and people have a huge range of emotions. And if you have a huge range of emotions, you don't know what one person's going to do to the next person. There's no telling how they're going to respond. And this is all a part of that whole mental health challenge, the whole mental health issue that we have worldwide. You can see a person that looks just as normal as whatever normal is supposed to look at, but it doesn't mean that what's going on inside their mind is peace and tranquility. So I am afraid. I'm afraid for my kids and my grandkids. I want them to, at least have a full range of living and a full range of life to be able to do things that, they want to do and that are fruitful for them, and they can have those experiences and really just be the better for it. But also the communities, I remember back in the old days talking about dating myself, obviously, right? But in the old days, it seemed like everyone had a neatly tailored or cropped lawn, and everyone had a car, and everyone seemingly had this Ozzie and Harriet lifestyle to a degree. But we're far from that these days. It's just the haves and the have-nots. And you may be saying, well, what does all this have to do with leadership? Well, leaders look at situations for what they are, they assess them, and they respond accordingly. It doesn't matter whether it's leadership in your family, leadership in your place of worship, leadership for your business, or even leadership in your job, your workplace. The bottom line is, and even leadership in your community, think about that, right? The bottom line is that, when unpredictable things happen, someone's going to do something. Now, who will be the one to take charge? Who will be the one to take on the responsibility of helping, lending a hand, pointing people in the right direction? Will it be you? Will it be me? And that's the whole key about, knowing what to do and when to do it, having a calm or a cool head to prevail over unexpected or volatile times. And, so when I say I'm scared too, is like, I think it's normal to be scared, especially when things have been so uneasy for a long time. But you have to find a place to put that fear. You have to take that emotion and not allow it to grow and run rampant in your mind and in your lifestyle. You have to just put it where it can be managed. See, you may not be able to change the circumstances that you're living in, but you can change the way that you respond to it. So again, when I say I'm scared too because I don't know, what am I going to be up against? What is it that I'm going to have to do for my family? What is it that I'm going to have to do for my mother who can't get around, even though she lives with my sister, and my sister is also older? What am I going to do for my kids who are out of state? So I think it's reasonable to have that feeling and realize that this is literally what I'm up against. And, money is not going to always solve everything. In a time of crisis, you can't think that you're just going to, WhatsApp, not WhatsApp, what's that, Cash App somebody money and it's going to fix the issue, or send them something through PayPal. Sometimes it's hands-on support that's needed in a time of crisis. Sometimes it's that moral support that's needed in a time of crisis. So, I'm looking at some of the things that leaders do. And you can write this down. I hope, if you get any value out of this, please feel free to share it. By all means, let other people know, because these are some unprecedented times that we're living in. Some things that leaders do in a time of crisis, or just in general challenging times, is they challenge themselves. Literally, leaders will challenge themselves. And when I say challenge yourself, there's a lot of things that go into that. I'm talking about challenging yourself from the initial impact of the situation. Okay, you've got this big challenge, this wall of uncertainty. Okay, how are you going to deal with that wall of uncertainty? It's the same way that you eat an elephant, as they would say. One bite at a time. You have to break it down, narrow it down, and look at it for what it is, see what is, what isn't, and then make the best decision based on your overall assessment. And, sometimes, write this down as well, leaders have to challenge themselves against their fears overall. So if it's a specific set of things or a specific thing, you have to say, well, can it hurt me? Can it hurt me physically? Which again, it basically breaks down to assessment. What happens if you don't overcome this fear? Overcoming that particular fear, is it that you have to overcome it so that you can preserve your own life? Or are you looking out for your family, your wife, your children? Because sometimes we may not be any good if it's just about us. But when it comes to being strong to protect your family, your children, your grandchildren, your wife, whatever it may be, many times there's a certain boldness and courage that we muster up so that we can get over that particular thing. And another thing is, you may feel like, well, I don't do a certain thing well. Well, those are shortcomings, whether you don't communicate well, whether it's you're not physically strong, that may be a shortcoming. Well, again, in the time of crisis, you may have to challenge yourself. You may have to challenge yourself to be a little more fatigued, more tired, because you're doing something that requires physical labor and you normally didn't have to do it. You're not in shape, but this thing must be done in order for you to have a certain quality of life or to clear yourself from the inherent danger. And then sometimes we're all in our head, and honestly, people can be petrified, totally immobilized because of this fear that's all in their head. And that's probably one of the worst fears at all because it's not tangible, it's not proven, yet you think this and you think that and you find yourself stuck. So, fear of the unknown is just as important, which goes right back to that being in a stage of assessment so that you can look at the reality of a situation, the feasibility of a situation, and determine the best way to get around it, over it, or right through it.